So we're working on this 2013 Hyundai Santa Fe, and we're fixing the front wipers, but there's also a problem with the rear wiper. So this is the low position on the rear wiper, and as you can see in the mirror, it's working. Now my understanding is if we push up on this switch, it's supposed to wash the rear window, and then that's not working. That's the complaint. Also, if we push up on this switch, that should initiate a rear wipe cycle, and it does not do that according to the service literature. Now the BCM controls the front and rear wipers, but not the rear wash function from what I can see. I've got the front wipers all apart right now because the wiper motor has failed, and the front wash works. Let's have a look at the electrical circuit. So here is the circuit description for the rear wipers. When the rear wiper switch is placed in the intermittent position, the BCM receives an intermittent on signal and operates the rear wiper motor intermittently in low speed by controlling the rear wiper relay. That works. BCM turns the rear wiper relay on and off just to activate the parking switch in the rear wiper motor. The parking switch returns it. The BCM controls the rear wiper relay to operate the wiper intermittently according to the speed setting. It does not have a speed setting according to the intermittent wiper speed set. The rear washer switch on position. The rear washer interface rear wiper function enables the rear wiper to be operated when the rear washer is activated. Like the intermittent wiper, it is controlled by the BCM using the wiper relay. If the rear washer switch is turned on, the ignition on power is passed through the rear washer switch number 1 and 2 to operate the washer motor, and operates the washer motor is independent of the BCM. When the rear washer switch is turned on, the washer switch potential becomes 0 volts on the BCM, which determines it as rear washer switch on. When the rear washer switch is determined to be on, the BCM controls the rear wiper relay to operate the rear wiper motor for the same period as the rear washer switch operating time. So my understanding is if you manually put it in wash, the rear wiper should come on for the length of time that the wash switch is held. That's not working. Now, I was looking at the wiring diagram for this thing. It uses the same washer pump for both front and rear. There's the washer motor. It has 3 wires to it, unlike most washer motors, and it looks like it reverses polarity on it. It has a built-in relay of some kind. You can see there's it looks like it reverses polarity on it. So this is coming from the multifunction switch, and this is coming from the BCM. So this is the front wash switch. It looks like it sends power to this circuit, and the rear wash switch, which is this one here, right there, shows the BCM receiving a signal. So if we can look at the BCM data and see if we're getting that rear wash signal, that would qualify this switch without having to take it apart. To get at this washer pump, you got to pull the front bumper cover off, it says. Mind you, might be able to get at it through the inner wheel well. Let's have a look at the BCM data. So I've auto ID'd the vehicle. We might as well do a network code scan. Sorry for the compressor noise running in the background. Key is on, engine is off, battery charger is on it. Let's see if there's any fault codes related to the system. That's because I got a battery charger on it, battery voltage low. Passenger occupant detection system sensor bladder defect. Well, we'll pick up when we get to the end of this code scan. So we scanned 17 controllers, got this high voltage code, low voltage code, passenger occupant detection system error. What the heck is occupant detection system cutoff history? And we'll answer the phone. So after the phone call, we've got some airbag codes, external tail light, right hand circuit short. Nothing determining a problem with the washer. So let's clear all the codes, and then we'll have a look at the BCM data and see if it's got the status of the switch in there. We can see it, but I don't think it's getting that, because my understanding by reading the circuit description is the rear wipers should come on while you're holding the wash switch in that position. We'll pick up when we get to the end of this code clear event. Okay, let's go into the BCM and see if we have data related to the front and rear wipers. I got another video that I just putting together for the front wipers. The wiper motor seized and it stripped the gear inside it. So let's look at functional test. BCM data 1 versus BCM data 2. Okay, wiper switch position on, intermittent switch, wiper high relay, wiper rear wiper on switch, rear wiper rear washer switch. This is the one I wanted to see. So I'm going to go and operate that switch. Okay, so that doesn't appear to be working. Just for the hell of it, let's have a look at the front washer switch and make sure that the data works properly, so we can hopefully that should change state when I hit the front wash. And it does. And the washer pump runs. So I think we have a problem with the switch, the master switch. I'll have to discuss this with the customer. So according to this schematic, the rear wiper fuse, which is good by the way because the rear wipers run, supplies power to this circuit, which supplies power to the rear washer switch. The rear washer switch in turn sends a signal to the BCM, which we're not getting, and it also sends power to this circuit here, which is the blue wire on the previous diagram. So if we were to go to this blue wire on this diagram, I'm sure that sends power. Yeah. From SD981 to SD981-2. So that is, if we could get to this washer pump and put voltage there, it should theoretically run the washer pump. But I don't see how that would do that, because that's an open circuit. Oh, wait a sec. It's going to go through the coil, energize the coil, switch the contacts, run the motor the other direction. I get it. Okay, so if we were to put power to pin 3 of the washer motor, if we could access it, that would supply power to the washer motor, and it would also theoretically turn the rear washer on. So let's see if we can find that motor. So you can get access to that washer motor by pulling this 2 little plastic push pins in the front corner of this out. So you can see that there's a washer pump, and it has a built-in relay. You can see off to the side this rectangular cube. So it reverses polarity on the motor to make the motor run the other way, and there's got to be a check valve in the outlet lines, so that depending on which way the motor runs, it directs the water to the front or rear. So it's that blue wire and the black wire. So we're going to put a test light across that blue wire and black wire. Black is ground and blue is power from the washer switch for the rear. See if it lights the test light. If it doesn't, we're going to supply power to that blue wire, and that should theoretically make the rear wipers turn on. So I've got a 912 bulb wired across there. which takes about a half an amp, which would theoretically be what would be required to run that washer pump. And I've got the key in the run position, or the ignition on, and I'm gonna operate the washer switch. And here we go. And nothing obviously happens. So I'm going to try and back pin that so that I can have it plugged in and supply power to it. So I don't have it back pinned, I got it face pinned because I wasn't sure. So I'm going to put power to that blue wire. That should theoretically send a signal to the BCM saying that I'm requesting the rear wash, and it should turn the rear wipers on. So let's see what happens. Here we go. And it'll stay running as long as I hold power on that blue wire. So that confirms the circuit all the way up to this washer pump, and all the way back to the switch, because I think it originates from the switch, and it wipes for several seconds after. Let's try it again. On and release. One. So it wipes 2 times after releasing the switch. So we have a problem with that circuit. Likely the master switch. So now I'm back pinning it, so the washer pump should run when I put power to that blue wire, and it does, and the rear wipers come on, but it leaks all over the floor here somewhere, and it's not. I thought it was coming out of this front line, but it's not. So there's a leak in the line as well inside this. Why is there foam inside there? Oh, here we go. Look at that. That hose is split. That's not foam, it's insulation. But there's the split in the hose. I can't see it because my hand is in the way. Yeah. Let's see if it'll focus. There it is. That hose has got a split in it, right in there. So we'll fix that. I don't think it's a split. The hose is chewed on by rodents. Hey, my gosh. So there's that piece of hose. It's all chewed. That's obviously rodent damage. Now there's a natural disconnect right above the left front tire. So I just replaced the section of hose. So now, theoretically, it should wash the rear window and turn on the rear wiper. Oh, look at that. Washing the rear window and turning on the rear wiper. No more dripping on me underneath there. So this is why I like to tell students that it's always wise to try to diagnose things as much as possible, because imagine if I had just condemned that switch, which I'm sure the master switch is failed, put it in and it still wouldn't have worked. It would have been leaking washer fluid all over the place, but the pump didn't even run before. Now it runs and the hose is rotten or chewed by rodents. So it would have looked like I had misdiagnosed it, I'm sure, to the customer. The average consumer wouldn't understand. As far as they know, it still doesn't work. You change this $500 switch and it still doesn't work. Now that I have the front wipers working, I noticed that this wiper switch is malfunctioning in another way as well. If you pull the lever towards the steering wheel, that initiates a front wash sequence, as you can see, and that works. But when you push the lever up, that's supposed to initiate a rear wash sequence, and it initiates a front wipe sequence. Yet when I put power to that circuit, as we did earlier, the rear wipers wipe and the rear washer washes. Now that I've fixed the rodent chewed hose, So I'm sure it needs this multifunction switch, and I shudder to think about what the cost of that is, but let's find out.